Chapter 10. Now that I knew I was going to Earth, my classes felt more meaningful. Everything I was learning could be utilized when I was there, acting like a mortal. I paid closer attention in my human interpretation class, studying the different colors on the aura chart and identifying the emotions I saw in my classmates, even if I couldn't relate to what they felt. I studied harder in astronomy and physics, worrying I'd get behind in my classwork while on Earth. Elder Master Barakiel sent me to a third-year class where I learned about the ability to phase between mortal and celestial planes. It wasn't something I needed to master just yet, as Barakiel would help me phase, but I needed to be aware of it. The one thing I wished I had mastered was removing my chains and using them as a weapon. We sparred with the bow staffs in weapons class, and Master Ingram glowered at me when I knocked Daniel off his feet. "A fallen won't give up so easily," she said. "It knows every moment it's down is an opportunity for you to dispatch it with your dagger. Oh, except," she paused, her eyes glittering, "you don't have a dagger, so watch your step, because if a fallen knocks you down, it could tear you apart." "The fallen can tear us apart," Daniel said, getting to his feet. Worry flashed across his face, but I saw Master Ingram already backpedaling. "The fallen can't touch you," she said. "You have too much light." "Ilme can," I exhaled, my breathing heavy from sparring with the bow. "You know they can." The look she gave me told me to shut up, but I was fed up with her putting me down, and the angels had the right to know. "Tell him about the 5-point, I said. Something like fear flashed across her face. "What's the 5-point? Daniel asked, looking between us. "The 5-point, I said, holding her gaze, "is a hand-to-hand combat move used to destroy spiritual beings." We were drawing a crowd. Other students had gathered around us, curious expressions on their faces. "This isn't something I've been authorized to teach," she hissed. "When will they find out about it?" I demanded. "When fallen have surrounded them and torn them limb from limb?" "The fallen cannot use it against us," she said, raising her voice. "They cannot touch us. It is used only against the fallen." I drew back, stunned at her information, and yet it made complete sense. Why had I thought the fallen could injure an angel? Those of us from Sheol could not touch, not each other, and certainly not beings of light. But confusion muddled my mind. How was that fair? "What is the 5-point?" Israfel asked. "I've said too much," Ingram said. "The 5-point is not to be discussed in this class." "Emily have the right to know," I said, finding my voice again. "They might need to use it against a fallen." "They will have no need of the 5-point, she said, glaring at me. "The 5-point is as dangerous for the angels involved as for the fallen. Now they have their daggers." "All except me," and that point was not lost on me. Ingram called the class back to order and resumed the sparring, but my eyes trailed down the chains tattooed across my arms. I still didn't know how to get them off. And I had no dagger. It was possible that the 5-point might be my only recourse. But I wouldn't be able to do it alone. "CD. New Orleans," Malik said when I asked him. "Logan lives in New Orleans." "In Louisiana." "Where is that?" I asked, barely touching my dark chocolate brownie. He opened his agenda and pulled up a map, showing me a small geographical location shaped like a torn boot, right here, in the United States, running along the Mississippi River near the Gulf of Mexico. I studied the map, savoring it. Mexico, Mississippi, United States. That was where I'd be. "That's it like." "It's pretty cool," he said, and he smiled, without reluctance this time. I treasured it. Sometimes he seemed hesitant to talk about Earth with me, and I sensed he still had misgivings about me going, but he kept them to himself. It's a hodgepodge of several different cultures. You can still hear French sprinkled in with the English words. The city is beautiful, and the people, well, some can be a bit rough around the edges. Some of that worry entered his eyes again, but most of them are friendly and warm. "New Orleans," I tasted the word on my tongue. "Can't wait to be there with you." "It'll be here soon enough," he said, and this time the reluctance was back. I wished I could wipe the concern from his face, but he would see soon enough. Everything would be fine, better than fine. The semester ended with excitement and fanfare, with everyone leaving their last class and heading straight toward the skyball pitch for the season finale game. The students from the other campuses would be arriving, and it was something the angels looked forward to. Except me. My time here was coming to a close, and I just wanted to go to Earth. I said goodbye to my friends and headed to the library instead. I loved reading up on the most recent events on Earth, anticipating the impact they were having on mortals and wondering how they would affect me. I could spend hours reading through news articles from around the world, but I concentrated on the United States in general, and New Orleans in particular, becoming enamored with this city I'd never been to. I knew I'd find you here. My head jerked up from the articles in my hands to see Malik crouching beside me. "Oh," I said, surprised I hadn't noticed him come in. I must have been absorbed in what I was reading. "Yep, but not today." He grasped one of my feathers and tugged until I caved to the pull and stood up. "You're coming to the game." "I don't need to see the game," I protested. He pulled me closer, so close that our bodies almost touched, and something in my navel leapt at his nearness, longing to minimize the distance between us. "It's not about needing to see the game," he said, his hands moving to the arches of my wings. His fingers followed the curve down to the feathers at the end, sending goosebumps up my arms. "It's about needing to spend time with your fellow students. It's about remembering to enjoy where you are." "Okay," I said, suddenly not caring about the articles. I would follow this angel anywhere, even to the depths of hell, if that was where he chose to go. He gave me a lopsided grin and pushed me in front of him, weaving his fingers through my downy feathers and walking sideways with me to the pitch. A memory washed over me as we neared the stands. The year before, watching the season finale game together. That was the moment, the first moment, when I realized I felt something for him. "Let's watch this game together every year," I said, pulling out of his grip as I turned to face him. "Sure," he said. "It's an annual date. From here through eternity." I liked the sound of that, and I couldn't keep the grin from spreading across my face. Chapter 11. The semester had been out for only a few days when I got a message from Barakiel to meet him in his office. Every message from him sent shivers of anticipation coursing through my body, uncertain when the call would come that would send me to Earth. Was this it? I left my dorm room and made my way across the quad, pulling my jacket up against the blowing wind. I wished it would snow. I remembered the snow from last year, how lovely it had been. "Jez." Malik's voice came from behind me, and I turned to see him hurrying my direction. "Where are you headed?" he asked, slipping his hand into my jacket pocket. I smiled at him. "Eldermaster Barakiel summoned me," I said. I frowned then. I couldn't be going to Earth yet, not if Malik was still here. "Hi, he summoned me too," but he only sounded mildly curious, not tense as he had the last few times we'd talked about Earth. I said, a rush of energy flooding me. Maybe this was it. I tried to keep my excitement to myself, but I knew it was likely Malik felt it. Barakiel's office felt different now that the semester was over, more comfortable and less official. Melodic music played from his tablet, which he silenced when Malik knocked on the door. "Come in," Barakiel said, gesturing to 2 chairs across from his desk. "Congratulations on your grades from last semester. You're both excelling in your studies." "Thanks," I said, rubbing my palms on my jeans. "But that's not why you called us here," Malik said. "No. Malik, I have a favor to ask of you. You do not have to say yes." That wariness I'd grown accustomed to crossed his face again. "What is it?" "As you know, Jez will be going down to Earth in just a few weeks' time. You and I both know this will be quite a shock to her. I assumed you would be scheduling a viewing around the holy days, as you have in previous years." "Yes," Malik said. "Would you be willing to go down and spend the season with your mother as a silent, angelic observer?" Malik rocked backward in his chair, and his shock was palpable from where I sat. "What? I don't understand." "I would like to send you to Earth as a ministering angel to your own family, and I would like Jez to accompany you." Malik blinked, his eyes wide, although I wasn't sure if he still didn't understand or just didn't believe it. "You want me and Jez to spend Christmas with my family?" "I do. I think this is a special time of year and Jez has never experienced it. Few people honor the holy days the way your mother does." "But this isn't allowed. To visit my family before I graduate, I mean." "Is not allowed or it's against the rules?" A smile pressed to Barakiel's lips. "It's true, it's against the rules for students to go down as angels and spend time with their mortal relations." Angels are allowed to visit Earth and the beings thereon when they wish and who they wish. I'm asking this as a favor. I'm asking for Jez to interact with the culture and the people of Earth a little bit before she's thrown into it, a full-grown teenager with no comprehension of what Earth is like. Do not feel you need to say yes. Well, of course, Malik said, sounding bewildered. Why wouldn't I? It just seems so unusual. There is nothing usual about this situation. Is it something you're willing to do? Malik gave an abrupt laugh, and a shimmer of excitement sparkled in his countenance. Wonderful. You'll find you have much explaining to do to her when you get to Earth. Perhaps try to fill Jez in beforehand. I'll summon you both for your descent. Thanks, Malik said, and he turned, extending his hand as if to take mine. Then he remembered, and he pulled on my jacket instead. Come on. We get to go to Earth together? As angels? Yes, Marilik laughed. You get to meet my mom. He grinned at me and I forced one back. I'd met his mom. I'd ruined her life. A shiver of dread crept up my spine. Barakiel must not know these details or he would not have asked Malik to take me to his family. CD. Malik and everyone from our dorm spent the next few days trying to teach me everything about Christmas, the celebration Malik's family participated in during the holy days on Earth. But why a tree? I asked as Iblis explained about the tall plant people placed in their living rooms. If the holy day is supposed to represent the baby born in Jerusalem, why a tree? I've always asked the same thing, Daniel said, laughing. Several of us sat around the frozen fountain in the quad, enjoying the first snowfall of the year. The thick hood of my jacket and my wings kept me warm. You don't celebrate Christmas, I said, focusing on Daniel. He had told me this earlier. No, but we do celebrate the holy days, just differently. I nodded. A few other students had told me the way they celebrated the season, and I found it interesting that almost every culture had a spiritual celebration, even if they were different. But Malik's family celebrated Christmas, so that was the one I was learning about. The presents, Dara said. You remember why mortals have them? They give to those they love, as a representation of the love the first emissary has for us. This tradition I understood, and a representation of the gift the first emissary gave to us. Malik stood above me, resting on the granite inset of the fountain. Only Jeremiel had remained silent during my classmate's quick lesson. I watched Iblis take his hand and give it a squeeze. He squeezed it back. Then he stood up and walked away. He must not have liked Christmas, Arella said. He didn't celebrate it, Iblis said. For him it was a time to see what everyone else had, and he never would have. That brought a somber silence over our group. I glanced at them, wondering at the guilt on their faces and trying to put Iblis's words into context. She stood up. I'm a bit envious, Jez. I'd like to spend Christmas with my family, have a good time, and learn all you can. Thanks. I gave her a smile before she turned and went after Jeremiel. My agenda buzzed in my bag, and Malik's beeped. He had it tucked under his arm, and he opened it, then met my eyes. Time to meet the fam, he said. All right, I tried not to feel nervous as my classmates called out their goodbyes and wished us luck. Malik wrapped an arm around me from behind and tucked his hand into the jacket pocket farthest from him, trusting the jacket to be a thick enough barrier between us. So far it had worked, so I didn't object to the contact. You know what's so sad, he said. What's that? I glanced up at him, but he didn't seem sad in the least. All the food, he grinned down at me. So many yummy things, and we won't be able to eat them. Will I be able to eat when I go down next semester? He shook his head. I don't know. There's not as much light on Earth, and you'll need it to combat the darkness. So Barakiel might have to sneak food to you from Arcadia. It's another reason why we have to come back every few days. Barakiel already stood behind his desk in his office, waiting for us when we entered. Ready? He asked. Yes, Malik said, extracting himself from around me. I nodded, though nervous energy prickled through me. I won't need to shield you for the descent, Barakiel said to me. Earth operates at a lesser light than Arcadia. I nodded again, not reminding him that I knew this. Even from Sheol, I hadn't had problems visiting Earth. Most parts of it, anyway. Some locations were bathed in light, even on Earth, and I couldn't approach them as a shadow, as a tempter. But I was not a temptari any longer. The holy places were not off limits to me. In the blink of an eye, Barakiel summoned the necessary energy to his fingertips. The portal opened at our feet. Malik, you go first. Jez, you follow. Malik stepped into the portal and my heart thundered in my throat. My first glimpse of Earth as a celestial being. I looked at Barakiel. Elder Master Barakio, I said, there's something you should know. Malik is waiting, Jez. He cocked his head at me. Can it wait? Could it? I didn't want it to, but it could. I let out a deep breath. Yes, it would have to. Then I stepped through the portal also. Sitting. Snow fell around us in giant flakes, but they didn't touch me or chill me like they did in Arcadia. I stood still for a moment, taking in the sidewalk beneath my feet and the snow-covered lawns. Cars of every shape and size parked along the sidewalk, and others drove slowly through the slush and falling white flakes. A 2-story blue house with white trim sat several yards from the sidewalk, surrounded by identical houses save for their different colors. Malik stood in the middle of the yard, his eyes on me, and his face broke into a smile when I looked at him, his wings spread wide, nearly disappearing into the snowy sky. Come on, Jez, he said, motioning me forward. I stepped over to him, my hands out. I can't feel anything, I said in wonder. No wind, no cold, no soft, wet drops of snow. It's a different plane. Remember, like you learned in class? We're still tuned to Arcadia's dimension. We can't feel anything here, and they can't feel us. I nodded. I'd heard the teacher's words, but they hadn't made sense to me until this moment. I watched the snowflakes drift to my hand and then threw it, straight to the other side. What else do you notice? He asked. I turned and studied the sidewalk, the crowds of humans bustling by. Their cold, their breath fogged the air around their colorful scarves, their cheeks reddened by the harsh weather. What else about them? I narrowed my eyes, trying to discern what he wanted me to observe. They're in a hurry. They're carrying bags. 2 humans stopped to talk to each other, smiling and talking quickly before walking on again. Others waved and called out to people they recognized. They know each other. They're happy. They're happy. Malik's voice carried the same joy in it. I looked at him and knew something about this scene lit him up inside. Well, are they happy? I asked, but I wanted to ask why he was. Because it's Christmas, he beamed at me. It's magic. Magic. That word didn't fit in the context of heaven. Christmas magic. He reached for my wing, tugging it and me closer. Everyone is happier, kinder, less selfish. Let's go inside. Is it the actual day? I asked as we walked the steps to his house. Tomorrow is Christmas Eve and then the actual day. We get to experience it all. He stopped at the front door, painted a lovely dark red with a ring of green branches on it, and I wondered how we would get through without attracting attention. But then Malik walked through, reminding me that we didn't exist on this plane. I braced myself and stepped through also. I expected to feel something, but there was no sensation at all, as if the house weren't real. Real or not, I had to stop and catch my breath when I saw the interior. Music played from somewhere, but it wasn't like any music I'd heard before. Jovial and energetic, it carried an expectancy of being carefree and happy. The same greenery I'd noticed on the door decorated the railing going up the stairs. It hung from the fireplace across from us, where pieces of wood crackled under the heat and pressure of a small fire. It dangled from the fridge, and I realized it matched the green tree in the dining room beside us. The Christmas tree? I said. Malik moved toward it. His fingers came out and traced one of the round baubles dangling from a branch. I made this when I was 5. That's my white handprint covering the ornament. I neared him, wanting to see his tiny hand. Then I looked at him, and I was sure the question showed on my face. Why? Why did I make this, or why did she keep it? His lip twisted in a small smile. There is so much you don't know, Jez. I waited to see if he would explain, but he let go of the bauble and fingered another one. Then another. He couldn't touch them, but that didn't seem to matter to him. What do they mean? I asked. Why are they on the tree? People decorate the tree with a color scheme, Malik said. Not my mom. She kept the Christmas ornaments us kids made over the years and put them on the tree. She thought they were the most beautiful ornaments ever. Malik snorted. I know that's not true now, but as a kid I thought she was the coolest. I looked at the assortment of sticks and glass globes and popcorn balls, tilting my head to assess them for beauty. I didn't see it. but the star is the most important. His wings gave a great flap, and I uttered a gasp as Malik flew upward a few feet, hovering at eye level with the sparkling white star. He could fly. I'd never seen him do it before because we weren't allowed to fly on campus and we didn't have flying lessons together. I willed my wings to open as we'd practiced, and they obeyed me. Then I told them to flap, or create downdraft, or whatever it was I needed to fly up. Nothing happened. I didn't know exactly what to instruct them, and the disconnect kept them from doing anything at all. Giving up, I tilted my head back to peer up at him. And why is the star the most important? Well, reasons. Things you'll learn in class when you study the different religions of the world. But for us, for my mom, she always taught us the star was a gift from God, and it continues to direct our eyes heavenward every day to remind us from where we came and where we're going. His wings fluttered, and he drifted back down beside me. She was right. She is truly light-lit, I said. My mom is amazing. She's been through a lot of hard things in life, but she never lost her faith. She never gave up on me. Noise came from the stairs, and a moment later 2 women came down it. They clung to each other, giggling and weepy, and I knew from their similarities that they must be his mom and sister. That's Rachel, he said, my sister, and my mom's Kate. Malik took a step back as they walked past us. I watched his face, the way he looked after them, the way he seemed to long for them. Have you seen them since your dad? He nodded. I can open a window whenever I want. I've checked on them from time to time, but it always makes me miss them. He let out a breath. They suffered when I died. My mom has no way of knowing where I am now, what I've become. He followed them into the kitchen, and I wished I could comfort him. I'm sure she knows you turned out well, I said. I was a drunk, no-good teenager who drowned while out partying on the lake. She probably thinks I'm rotting in hell. I shook my head and my wings stretched outward, the feathers of my left wing brushing his face. I hadn't told them to do that. I couldn't tell them to do anything, but it seemed they also wanted to touch him. She had faith in you. She knew the goodness in you. I can see it in her now. He reached up and clasped the feathers as they caressed his face. Still, I wish she knew for sure. He turned, his eyes lingering on my face. Thanks, Jez. He thanked me for trying to console him, but I was unworthy of his thanks. Over his shoulder, his mother and sister blurred as I focused on Malik, reminding me of the times I'd visited his father as a Temtare. The people around him had remained fuzzy images, none of my concern. I'd met them. I'd probably met Malik. I sucked in a deep breath, racked with shame. I felt like a sludge of slime in this beautiful, serene home. Are you all right? He asked, picking up on my distress. It's a lot to take in at once. I fumbled over my words. I couldn't be truthful with him, but I did not want to lie. I bet, he said with a nod, the feelings come from everywhere, don't they? At least they are good feelings. They were good feelings, except there were hints of sadness, hints of missing a child or a family that could have been and wasn't, and it was those pieces of sadness that haunted me. Come on, Malik said, my room's still here. Most of the emotions have drained away over the years. Maybe you can find reprieve. In Malik's old bedroom? I doubted it. Coming here felt like a terrible idea. Chapter 12. Malik started to fly up the stairs, but I remained at the bottom, looking up at the landing. I can't fly, I said. How do I get up there? He returned to my side. Just walk up the steps then. But they're not real. How will they support me? Forget they're not real. He took a step up, his foot resting on the surface, then another, and I followed tentatively, half expecting my foot to step through the plank of wood. But it didn't. And together we went up to the landing. Is this how it is as a guardian? I asked as we glided through a closed door into a room. The light was off and the room dark, but I could make out a bed against a wall and a window behind it. For the most part. Light filled the room, but it didn't come from the light bulb overhead. It came from Malik. Sometimes we have to be more corporeal, so we switch planes. You'll learn all of that next year before you get an assignment. I sat down on the bed, and Malik sank onto the ground in front of me. But I think the experience you have on Earth will be a little different than as a guardian, he continued. Elder Master Barakiel said you'll be able to interact with humans, so you'll be on a plane similar to theirs, or they wouldn't see you. I nodded and glanced around the room. even the corners had lit up. Will it tire you using so much of your light? Yes, he admitted. I could turn the light on, but the humans would see it, and I don't want to sit in darkness. Me either, I murmured. It's only a few days. When we return to Arcadia, we'll go to Shma and replenish our light. He studied me. You seem different, almost like you're repressing your feelings. Maybe it's not good for you to be away from Arcadia. He worried I didn't have enough of my own natural light to survive away from the influence of Arcadia. I had to shake off this glumness, or Malik might change his mind about me coming to Earth. Without his support, I couldn't do it. I'm fine. I've never been around humans. The feeling surprised me. But I'll get used to them. He nodded, though concern still showed in his golden brown eyes. I made a show of straightening my back, and my wings flared out, spreading past the edges of his bed. I looked around the clean room, with awards and ribbons on one wall and a collection of framed photographs on another. Is everything just the way you left it? Malik didn't even glance around. He just laughed. No way. I left this place a mess. An emotion flickered across his face, one I couldn't identify but seemed laden with sadness. My mom cleaned it up, put away the trash, made my bed and set my clothes in their drawers, and then she closed the door and walked away. I wanted to understand what he felt, what his mother felt, but I didn't. I couldn't comprehend the sense of loss. He stood up. I would like to visit a few friends while I'm here. Check on my dad also. Are you all right to go? They're close enough I could fly there, but I'll synergize with you so we can open a portal. My heart seized in my chest. No. The one thing I could not do was visit his father. I shook my head, a tremor working up through my soul. I think I need to rest for a bit, I said, unable to meet his eyes. But you can go. You don't need to stay here with me. I can stay. We have all day tomorrow. Go on, Malik, I'll be all right. I needed him to go. I felt an overwhelming desire to cry. I didn't understand it, but I wanted to be alone. He knelt in front of me, worry shining in his eyes. Maybe we should go back. I'll be fine, I said, putting on a brave face. Just give me a moment. He stood again, and I sensed he'd picked up on my desire to be alone. Don't go anywhere. I won't. All right, I'll be back soon. He skipped the door and flew out the window. It was such a majestic sight, the white wings opening in flight as he leapt from the window. I sighed and turned my attention to what was wrong with me. It wasn't that my light was diminishing. I was racked with negative feelings, and they were impacting my ability to see my light. I felt my wickedness on all sides, felt weighed down by the darkness within me. A deep ache welled up in my chest, growing and widening until it threatened to consume me. I needed to rid myself of this, but how? If I were at the academy, I would go to Shma. I would pray. I had only prayed one time in my life, and it was on Iblis' behalf. I doubted the ability of my prayers to reach Shamayim, especially from Sheol, but they had. And the Father had intervened. Would he now? Were my insignificant worries and feelings enough for him to notice me? I was not his daughter, but I was his granddaughter. I clasped my trembling hands together, curling around my knees. Great Father, I whispered. You are not my father, but you are the Father. If you can hear me, help me. What must I do to rid myself of this negativity? I know I can't undo what I did to Malik's family. My throat caught and the tears of shame and regret burned their way down my face. I can't atone for my mistakes. What must I do? How can I live with myself? A sliver of light poured down upon me, once again illuminating the darkness in the room. It filled me with warmth, dispelling my despair, shaking away my gloom. Words echoed around me, in my head and in my heart, and yet they weren't audible at all, but a feeling. The atonement has already been done. Forgive yourself and serve my children, little one. I couldn't catch my breath as I sat on the bed in stunned silence. There was my answer. The ache was gone and I had my response. I would serve humanity and I could let go of what I'd done. Malik did not return until the sky began to turn pink and orange with the coming morning. Then he fluttered through the window, radiating a contented energy about him. Good morning, I said. I worried you'd lose track of time and forget to come back. He smiled at my teasing and came to sit beside me. I will always come back to you. He stroked the arch of my wing. You seem better. I am. I didn't tell him about my heartfelt prayer and the Father's answer. Those were my personal experiences to hold close and remember. How are your friends? As well as can be expected, I suppose, he said, letting out an exhale. We weren't on a great course in high school. After Jake and I died, the others drifted apart. They felt guilty and they handled it in different ways. But at least they're planning their futures, he shrugged. They have opportunities to achieve happiness. Do you see them often? Now, maybe once a year I'll have a viewing where I check on them. They are beyond my influence. But you pray for them? Every night at Shema. I pray for my friends and my family and anyone else who comes to mind. He nudged my wing with his. You pray for me? I found this rather touching and also felt a prickle of shame that it had never occurred to me to pray for him. I didn't know we pray for other people. You prayed for Iblis. Yes, but she needed help. We all need help all the time. I pondered that idea. A smile spread over Malik's face and his wings flapped, lifting him from the bed. It's the day before Christmas. It's cookie day and caroling. You need to experience these earth traditions. Come on. But we can't eat the cookies, I said, rising from the bed. We'll still experience them. This is my favorite day, even better than Christmas. He paused at the bedroom door. I'm not sure. Because today we're focused on each other and making other people happy. And tonight, after they drop off cookies to the neighbors, my mom will take my sister to the nearby church for the Christmas Eve service. And He shook his head, words leaving him. Even then, even as a rebellious, angry teenage boy in those moments, I knew there was more to existence than mortal life. He spread his fingers and then closed them tight. It's a feeling I wish I could have held on to at every point in my life. I couldn't picture any of it, but I felt his emotions. I can't wait. Sardi. My guilt did not come back to plague me through the rest of the holy days on earth with Mailik, even when his father and girlfriend came by Christmas afternoon to wish his daughter a Merry Christmas. I stayed in the corner of the kitchen while his older daughter loved on her new baby sister. Elias spoke a bit with Kate, and though they were not on friendly terms, there didn't appear to be animosity between them. She thanked him for coming, and then they left, and I breathed a little sigh of relief. I'd been half afraid Elias would sense my spirit, that it would feel familiar and make him think of his temptations. I would rather cease to exist than bring him back to his old vices. Barachiel appeared in the dining room after the midday meal. Rachel and Kate had retired to the living room, and Malik and I sat around the Christmas tree. Neither one of us was speaking, just enjoying the flickering lights of the tree and the soft Christmas music playing in the background. Malik's knee nearly touched mine, his aura tickling and teasing my own. We both looked up at the archangel as he stepped nearer to us. Ready to return? He asked. I hadn't noticed a portal appear, only a brighter light filling the room before Barachiel appeared. I looked at Malik, and he nodded. Ready. Barachiel focused on me. Do you feel like you learned anything? I learned a lot, I said, some lessons that I did not expect to learn. Are you ready to come to Earth and live as a mortal? I think so, I whispered. Then let's go. The portal appeared in front of us, and Malik and I both got to our feet. He glanced back at me, then he stepped through. I hesitated a moment. Elder Master, I said, I would still like to speak to you. Is something wrong? He studied me more closely. I shook my head. There is something I need to say. Then stay in my office after we return, and we will discuss your concerns. Now go. I jumped into the portal feet first and joined Malik behind the desk. Barachiel appeared a moment later and the portal vanished. Thank you both for participating in that experiment, Barachiel said. I would like a report of what you felt and observed. Please have that to me within the week. Yes, Elder Master, Malik said, and he turned to go. Jez, please stay a moment, Barachiel said. Malik turned startled eyes on me, but I kept my gaze glued to the Elder Master. I'll be in the library, Malik said, and then he left. Once the door closed behind him, Barachiel said, What is it, Jez? I sense something troubles you. Not as much as it did before, I said, and I'll put it in my report, but there is something serious that I feel you should know concerning my relationship with Malik. He tilted his head, looking curious and a little worried. What is it? I swallowed hard and reminded myself of the Father's comforting words. I didn't need to carry about the burden of guilt, but I also couldn't pretend it hadn't happened. I was the Intere who tortured Malika's father. I tempted him to sin and made him succumb to vice and avarice. It's my fault that Malika's family is destroyed. It's my fault. Now, I could not keep the shame from filling my limbs with heat and rushing to my face. It's my fault Malik is dead. Barakiel sank into the chair behind his desk and studied me. Please sit, Jez. I did, sitting on the edge of the chair and clasping my hands together. Would Barakiel rescind the plans to send me to Earth? Would he decide I was no longer worthy to be here? He steepled his fingers and leaned toward me. No mortal anywhere was ever coerced to sin. Each one makes their own choice. While the devil and his minions might tempt and taunt, no one forces man to choose evil. That is the beauty of free will. I let out a little breath, grateful for his absolution. But I played a part, a terrible part. Yes, you did. A part of mortality that Malik's father knew and accepted before he went to Earth. He didn't know you, but he knew there would be temptations. As did Malik. He gave into weakness and pride and excuses as a mortal, and that led to his moral downfall. Jezbathasat, none of that was your fault. I closed my eyes, accepting his words. It was what the father had indicated also. You must also remember, Jez, you're less to blame than any other Temptar in existence. They chose to be renegades. They chose to follow Hasatan. You did not. You were never given a chance or a choice for a better way. But you are who you are, and even Hasatan could not destroy the greatness within you. I opened my eyes and looked at him, and I saw a fondness there, a genuine affection for me, for the person I was. Thank you. I'm glad you told me, Jez, because it's never good to have these kinds of secrets within us, but... He hesitated. Jez, I would not reveal this to Malik, not at this moment. He has a right to know, but his soul is not ready for the information. My throat closed up. He won't forgive me. His spirit's still maturing, and it will reach a point of eternal perspective where he understands, but he's not there yet. Milk before meat, I said, remembering something else he'd told me. That's right. His eyes crinkled as he smiled. Now, I've got a few things to do here, and you have a report to write. I do. I stood up. Thanks again. Go with light, Jez. CD. I knew Malik expected me to show up in the library, but I couldn't face him just yet, not knowing the secret I carried between us. So instead I went to the greenhouse. We were on break, but I wasn't the only one who had developed a fondness for the plants here, as was indicated by the presence of other students. I knelt in front of my patch of dirt and stroked the leaves of the growing bush. This I could touch without destroying it or hurting either of us. I'll come back as often as I can, I promised. Who would care for this little plant without me? I can't wait to see what you're going to be. Why don't you add to your garden, give your plant a little neighboring friend? I hadn't noticed Master Sabriel approach, but I stood as she stopped by my plat. Would the plant feel that? The life force of two or more beings close to each other multiplies. They share and feed off each other, so instead of being the power of one, it's 1 times 2 for each of them. That's why we synergize. I'm about to leave for Earth, I said, in case she didn't know. Who will care for my plant and any new ones? Jez, you should know I won't let any life form go neglected in my greenhouse, she said, her voice warm. Add to your garden. I'll nurture it in your absence. I stood and went to the table of seedlings. Some were labeled and some were not, but I knew nothing about plants, so it made no difference. I selected an oblong seed, bumpy and brown and pointed on one end. Then I returned to my plat. I didn't put it too close to my first plant, my firstborn, as I fondly thought of it. I could give it more than just energy also. I stuck my fingers in the dirt and summoned water to my plat. I didn't remind others of my particular ability to control water, but I saw no reason to carry buckets to my soil when I could call it up from the ground itself. Grow, little seedling, I murmured, sending my energy into the new seed. The earth near my fingertips trembled, and the tiniest sprout emerged from the dirt, hovering near the surface of the soil. I exhaled and rocked back on my heels, taking a moment to let my energy replenish. My wings fluttered, pulling life from the air around them. I placed a hand on the soil again, feeling the life forces of both plants. Already, my firstborn had noticed the new addition, and I felt their energies glow brighter as they examined each other, like two lights in close proximity. One might be barely visible, but together, they magnified the brightness. "I'll give you a whole bunch of friends when I return," I said, and I smiled, satisfied with my work here. Chapter 13. Bliss wanted to know everything about Christmas and Malik's family. She was still chattering about it on the first day of the second semester, rehashing everything I'd told her as if she'd been the one to go to Earth and spend time with mortals. Jeremiel kept quiet at her side, but his silence didn't fool me into thinking he was compliant. Thoughts were going on in his head, and I worried about them. He opened the door to the Kiraman Language Arts Building, or the K-Lab as students tended to affectionately refer to it. First years didn't have classes in the K-Lab, though I'd noticed the dome-shaped building behind the armory when I first arrived on campus. He held the door for both me and Iblis, but somehow I ended up in front of the two of them as they slowed down to walk together. I thought about what Malik had said on the tower the evening he accepted to be my guardian on Earth. Angel couples were a forever thing. That was quite different than the relationships I'd seen on Earth, where couples had strained relations and conditional love. Not all, of course, but those were the ones I'd spent time around. They were the easiest to tempt. I found a seat in the back of the classroom next to Dara and set my tablet on my desk. The class also required a notebook with physical paper, so I placed that on my desk beside my tablet. "Good morning, class," Master Nuriel said, fluttering into the room with a big smile. She was a tiny angel, looking more like a pixie with her short pink hair and short stature. Even her wings had a more translucent look to them, though there was no mistaking the feathers. "To get started on the topic of this class, please open the assigned book, The Origins of Language. You did the reading during the break?" Her smile was both hopeful and expectant. I bobbed my head, one finger twirling with the end of my hair. Though I found the topic fascinating, my mind wasn't on the reading. How much longer would I be here? "Second semester was when I'd go to Earth," Barakiel had said. "Fantastic. I'd like you to take the next 10 minutes to write on your paper and with your pencil 2 simple paragraphs telling me about your morning. This is an exercise in linguistics, not poetry, so don't worry about trying to be all flowery and pretty. You may get started." Ah, so we would be writing. I'd learned to read the year before, and I'd never been required to write. I wasn't sure I could remember the letters. I painstakingly formed the words on my paper. This morning I woke up and went to breakfast with my roommate Iblis. We met our friends at Tabelde. "That's 10 minutes, Master Nuriel said cheerfully. I glanced to my right and saw Vanina had written 2 paragraphs in those 10 minutes, and the beautiful script scrawled across her paper. I cringed to see my messy handwriting and sloppy letters next to the graceful curves of my peers. "Wonderful," Nuriel said as she walked among us. "Go ahead and hand your papers over to me." I half-shielded my paper as she approached, hoping she would take it without looking at it. I handed it over, but she didn't comment. "Does anyone know why I had you write by hand instead of using your agenda and stylus?" she asked. No one answered. "As we could improve our handwriting," Iblis ventured. "Pretty close. Today we're going to talk about the universal nature of languages. Before we do that, I would like all of you to come up to the front of the room and examine the papers of your peers." I stood up with the rest of the class. Nuriel laid our papers in neat rows on her desk. Heavens throne, now everyone would see my terrible handwriting. "Look at the letters on each paper," she said as we approached. "Can you read them?" "This one's not written in English," Dara said in surprise, picking up one of the papers. "I can't read these letters," Israfil said, scrutinizing another. "What alphabet is this?" "That's probably mine," I said, my face burning. "I'm not very good at making letters." My classmates laughed a little, but Israfil shook his head. "This is chicken scratch." I leaned forward, examining the paper. I was relieved to see it wasn't mine. More than that, though. The writing looked like a series of sticks, with lines joining them together. "Wait a minute," Daniel said, fingering another paper. "Why are so many of us writing in different languages?" Nuriel beamed at us. "You may sit down. Now, let's discuss what you just observed." I hurried to my seat, eager to have the mystery unfolded. "What language did you read the book in?" "English," Dara said. "Oh, Arabic," Laike said. "Rated," Erimael said. I had no idea. I'd simply read. "And what language did you write your paper in?" "The same languages were called out?" Much language are you speaking right now? My classmates looked at each other, and I saw something like understanding in their eyes. Daniel said, "Are we not all speaking Hebrew?" "I'm speaking French," Eramiel said. "But I understand you," Lakey said, swiveling to face him, "and I don't speak French." The class broke out into a confused, excited chatter. "Students," Neriel called out, "let's quiet down so I can explain." She stepped up to the whiteboard and wrote, "The language of Shemayim." Turning around, she said, "When we lived in Shemayim before going to earth, we spoke one language, the same language. It's the language the Father spoke with Adam in the garden and is often called the Adamic tongue. It's the language we are speaking now." That last statement brought out gasps of surprise, but not from me. I had only spoken one language my entire life, and that hadn't changed when I came to Arcadia. Dara said, "But I'm not thinking in a different language," Dara said, sounding puzzled. "I'm thinking as I always have. The moment you die and leave the earth, the language is revealed to your mind, as you spoke it for thousands of years before the brief life you had on earth. It's natural to you, but so unexpected that almost nobody notices the switch. When it comes to writing, however, it's not natural. That is why I asked you to handwrite your papers, because all of you reverted to the language of your mortality." Murmurs of understanding flooded the classroom. "Is that the language you're writing in?" Leke asked. "It is, but it's not the language you're seeing. The classroom screens change the language so it appears to you how you can read it." "But how did we evolve into speaking something besides the Adamic tongue?" Iblis asked. "Was it the Tower of Babel?" Vanina asked. "Bell," Nuriel corrected, and a few kids laughed. "Not exactly. When Adam left the garden and his seed multiplied and spread out, the language began to mutate. New vocabulary emerged as new objects were discovered, and sounds changed naturally as humans had less interaction with those farthest from them. The Hebrew language is the closest to the Adamic language, though of course it changed with time also. But many of the words are the same. Hebrew speakers who arrive in Shemayim discover their earth tongue to be very similar to the heavenly language." "So what happened at the tower?" Daniel asked. "Thebe was broken up into various languages, so no one could communicate?" Neriel stepped over to the board and drew a tall tower. A tower was indeed built, but the people who gathered to build it came from different areas around the land of Babylon, and they spoke different versions of the same language. They could communicate with each other, even if sparsely. She drew a series of stick figures standing around the tower. "The problem arose from politics, my friends. Those who agreed to help build the tower also committed their funds and time to the building, but after several years, when the tower was nowhere close to reaching the heavens and people were getting tired of the commitment, scuffles and disagreements arose. They reached an end to their agreement, and in a show of bitterness and spite, the leaders took their people and scattered as far from Babylon as they could. By doing so, they broke the proximity of the common language and allowed it to evolve into separate branches of etymology." "So God didn't change their languages," Arella said. "No, he did not. He did not even force them to scatter abroad. But the result of the scattering was a separation of the common tongue." "That makes sense," Jeremiel said, somewhat grudgingly. "Oh yes, the truth often does," Nuriel said, her smile implacable. "But back to the problem at hand, how do we overcome the fact that none of you can write in the Adamic language?" I groaned. "We have to learn how? I just barely learned to write in English, for heaven's throat." "That would definitely work, but let's say you're given an assignment in, perhaps, Greece. Who here can speak Greek?" I glanced around, but nobody raised a hand. "Ying, you understand what I'm saying?" We nodded. "I'm speaking Greek right now, but you don't need to know the language. When you speak the Adamic tongue, it's understood by all its hearers. And because all languages stem from it, your spiritual ears allow you to interpret any earth language." "Interesting," Likely murmured. "But not writing?" Iblis asked. "Writing is a learned talent. Babies acquire language from hearing it spoken around them. They do not acquire writing skills from looking at written words. You learned to write in your earth language." "Dara, we have to learn to read and write in all the languages of earth if we want to communicate with them," Dara asked, panic in her voice. "Let's go back to the example of Greek." Nuriel pushed a button on her stylus, and the whiteboard was replaced with a paragraph of text. I squinted, trying to make out the words, but the letters were different than the ones I'd learned. And can anyone read this? We shook our heads. It's true that I could teach you Greek and you'd be able to read it. However, you would have to do that for every Earth language. Luckily, there's a better way. She put her stylus down. You've been gifted with the ability to translate languages into the Adamic tongue. You just have to learn how to use that ability. But translating is hard work, Daniel said. We'd have to find word-to-word equivalents, or at least similar idioms and contextual clues. If you were limited to translating as a mortal, that is absolutely correct. But you're not. With a few tools, you can learn to translate and interpret any Earth language, even if it's written in an unfamiliar alphabet with unfamiliar symbols. The interesting thing is, language at this point becomes something of a math problem. What you need to do is find the common denominator in your languages. Once you do, it's just a brain teaser you have to work out. And the more often you do it, the easier it becomes. Is there anything familiar in this language here? Lots of the letters look like English, Iblis said. And French, Vanina said, though it's not the same alphabet. Two of them look similar to Arabic. Also, Lake said. Good, you're catching on. Here's your homework then. Go to the library and study the etymology of your native tongue. Find its roots, maybe the oldest words, and write a paper on the evolution of your language. Next class, I'll show you how to apply that to an unknown language. Class dismissed. I never knew, Dara said, gathering her books. We wandered out of the classroom together. I thought this whole time we were speaking English. I did think it was weird so many non-Islams knew Arabic, like he said. But then I thought, well, this is almost heaven, so why not? That led to some laughter, and the other angels shared similar thoughts, but I wasn't paying attention anymore. I just received a message from Barakiel. Please come to my office after lunch and be prepared to leave the academy. My heart tumbled beneath my ribcage. It was time. One more class, lunch, and then, I'd be going to Earth. Didi. I gathered with Malik in Barakiel's office, wearing my most earthen clothing, jeans and a sweater. My nerves were all aflutter. It was happening. I'll go down with you, Barakiel said. We've assigned you the role of a foster child. You will be exposed to a range of extreme emotions, as well as suppressed emotions, some your own, but often belonging to those around you. I'll deliver you to your foster mother, who will not be surprised when you don't show the same emotional maturity or understanding as most human children. The foster child is a human child, I said, confused. Why would I not have the same emotional maturity? Because many foster children have been emotionally neglected and often physically misused, Barakiel said. This can damage their spiritual development. They often spend multiple years in Gehenna healing from these wounds, growing spiritually, so they feel ready to attend the academy. Well, I said, and I felt a painful twinge. Was it sympathy, or was it guilt? Anyway, Malik said, bringing my attention back to the present. Yes, I said. They won't think I'm any odder than other human children. Then what? They won't be able to see your wings, but you will still have them. This foster mother was chosen for her goodness and compassion, and she'll be an excellent role model for you. She'll also enroll you in high school and prepare you for what you need. Okay, my heart beat faster. I was about to live out life as a normal human teenager. Well, fairly normal, it seemed, and if one of them touches me, don't react, don't flinch. They won't actually be able to feel you or your spirit. You exist on a separate plane, a different dimension. You won't feel them at all, but they will think they feel you. It's a careful illusion we create. What about Malik? I glanced at him where he stood at the desk. Malik will not be visible to the humans, but you will see him. His assignment is enrolled at the same high school you'll be going to. Perhaps you can work together to help him. Has this been done before, an angel going to Earth and masquerading as a human? Oh yes, Barakiel smiled. There is very little that hasn't been done before. He turned to Malik. I'll take her down first. You follow through the same portal, but let me get her situated with her new family before you check up on her. Otherwise, you'll be something of a distraction. Malik nodded. Barakiel turned around and opened the portal at my feet. Oh, and Jez? Yes, I turned away from the widening sphere. It's best that you stay away from water. It's the only element Hasatan can manipulate on Earth, and it could be dangerous for you. Okay, I nodded. Go, I'm right behind you. With my heart in my throat, I stepped up to the portal. Taking a deep breath, I jumped. Both feet landed on solid ground. My eyes shot open, only then realizing that I'd closed them. The sun shone high overhead and long tree branches stretched out across the splotchy, cracked sidewalk, with tree roots as thick as my waist stretching out as far as the overhead branches. Noises rushed past my ears as cars roared past, honking and squealing and ignoring each other. I lifted my face to the houses beside me on the sidewalk, tall structures with wrought iron balconies and brick facades. How very different than the feeling when I'd emerged in front of Malik's house at Christmas. Ready? I swiveled to see Barakiel standing beside me. Mayalik appeared a moment later. "Where are we?" I asked. "New Orleans, Louisiana, French Quarter." Barakiel looked more human than ever in a pair of light pants and a long-sleeved button-up shirt. We stepped out of the way as a group of girls walked by, purses slung over one shoulder, hair long and styled, wearing short jeans and tight sweaters over their slender torsos. I watched them laugh and chatter with each other as they continued away from us. "Your new house isn't far from here," Barakiel said. I took my eyes from the girls and followed him around the corner. The roads weren't straight, leading to a few narrow corners. Plants grew over the trellises surrounding some of the houses, and the air was pleasantly cool. Barakiel climbed the steep concrete steps in front of a house and pressed a button on the bricks. A high-pitched chime echoed through the building, and then a woman with large blonde hair and clear blue eyes threw open the massive front door.